Overnight, I've received quite a few sneers and sniggers about my decision to boycott things made in the USA. Mainly, it seems, from Americans themselves, as this person has also noted. When you say those words, "you will make no difference," you say them to an Australian. And from gold miners' rebellions in Ballarat to futile fights on literal battlefields abroad, Australian history is endowed with noble defeats in futile battles. We almost take pride in their futility because it's in those moments that we demonstrate most clearly to our mates. In this case, Canada, Mexico, Europe, most of the rest of the non-USA world. However grim things look, whatever the overwhelming odds you face, you will not face them alone. When a Canadian looks over their shoulder, searching for the last person standing by their side, that person will be an Australian. And on a personal note, I have this standard. I will not be complicit in the tyranny of the USA. And this standard that lives in my mind now lives in the real world through my actions. Literally, I will not buy into the tyranny of the USA. And this feels right, just as it feels right for others, evidently, too. Because when this is over one way or another, I want my name to have been recorded in my memory, if nowhere else, in the column of the names of the people who said I will not be complicit, and not among the names of those who sneered or sniggered, or worse, who cheered the tyrant on.
So I've cancelled my next trip to the United States. I was meant to be going there in later April. I was looking forward to it as well, like going to Boston, New England, beautiful places, lovely people. In fact, I even have both friends and actually some relatives in Maine, but I've cancelled it because ICE, or whatever the hell it is detaining people. I mean, they detained a young Canadian for 10 days. They apparently arrested a bunch of Germans recently. They're going through people's phones. Like, this is meant to be, the United States is meant to be the beacon of democracy and freedom and so forth. Well, it is anything but. This is what fascism actually looks like. It is awful in North Korea, and it is awful in Saudi Arabia, and it is awful in Iran. So we can all be honest about that. But when that sort of thing settles in to what we consider to be the free world, that is the erosion of any value that we actually stand for. So I bring business to the United States, right? I run tours. Well, I'm not going to now. It's shocking, but I woke up 3 days in a row worrying about flying down there. And then I talked to someone I know kind of on the inside who said, don't fly in if you're not an American citizen. Like, this is how terrible it is at the moment. So it's sad and it's shocking, but hey, I'm off to Europe in a few days. I can fly down to South America, a lot of beautiful places. And American friends are welcome up here, absolutely. But if you're going to come up and wave a Trump flag, then, don't bother.
Just in case no one's told you today, it is literally now or never, by the way. The United Kingdom have now officially warned their citizens, have warned us to not travel to the United States, and if we do, to be prepared of the heightened risk posed by the border and the new Trump administration. Historically, this has never been done by the United Kingdom and the United States, besides literally during 9/11 and the previous world wars. This is, of course, days after British, German, and other European tourists have also been detained for days, weeks at a time at the border. This is, of course, weeks after Trump has basically appeased Putin and has agreed to be a bystander to the invasion of Ukraine and practically any other European country that Putin has his eyes set on. I absolutely hate saying this as your friend from across the pond, but there's going to be a point where we are not going to have any international influence to help you guys, because Trump is literally making that quite literally impossible. He's isolating America. How does nobody see that? To the extent that they will confiscate your phone at the border, and if you have anything that is negative towards Trump, they will literally ban you from the USA. So if you're an American watching, you really have to have the fight in your belly right now, because it is truly now or never. I literally cannot say that any louder.
Don't travel to the US and don't buy American goods. I understand the gravity of that request coming from me. And I fully understand that there are a lot of people that can't do it. So let me explain myself. If you're watching this and you don't know who I am, I'm an American who's living abroad in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and one who is fearing for the state of the States at the moment. But as the world watches the States, there is a sense of absolute disgust with what's happening. And there's a sense of hopelessness and futility as we watch the United States of America become the Democratic People's Republic of America. This is something that we can do to directly affect what's going on. First is, don't travel to the States. This is especially true if you are not a white person. I hate to say it that way, but it is very true. Migrant hate is at an all-time high. And just watching it and hearing the stories, I do not feel like it's safe for you guys to go. But besides that, if you go to the States, all the money that you spend on that holiday eventually goes back into the economy and then supports the administration. Because all that revenue earned on tourism gets taxed. And all that tax money goes straight to you-know-who. Another thing that we can do here is to boycott American goods. I know that that's a big ask. In some places, that's not going to be as big an issue because they're getting tariffed and all these goods are becoming so expensive you don't want to buy them anyway. But in a place like Aotearoa, the tariffs don't necessarily affect us as much here. So some American goods are going to be cheaper, especially when we're having kind of a cost of living crisis here. But where you have the option, please try to avoid American goods if you can. I'm just as guilty of this. There's so many vices I have that come out of the States. But one of the only things you can do is hit him in the pocket. One of the main reasons that he got in was on promises of making things cheaper and more affordable and creating American jobs. All while completely forgetting that his biggest donors, that the biggest part of American industry comes from world trade and international money. Look, I know it's a big ask. I really do. And it's going to be hard for me too. And I'm not going to be able to give up all American goods. But where possible, as a world community, let's make a stand as best we can and say that we're not happy with how he's treating the global community. Feel free to disagree with me. That's the beauty of the internet, but it's just something to think about as we're going through this, that this has been the first 3 months and we've got 4 years of it. And he so far has gotten away without thinking that he has any consequences. And all we can do is try to give him some consequence. Because a great teacher of mine has told me there's only 2 ways that people learn anything. That's wisdom and consequence. And if you won't listen to wisdom, you have to face the other one.
What would happen if we just didn't go to a state that really depends on tourism? What do you think would happen to that state? Florida, get it together, girl. I don't know what you're thinking, but now they want to come after Disney too. Y'all lose Disney. People are already not going to Miami. What's your plan? What's your next step? I'm curious.
One of the things that Republicans promised us when they took over the House, the Senate, the White House, everything, they're like, no more government losing money. We're going to have a prosperous government. We're going to make the cuts we need to. We're going to balance the budget, and the government is going to be wealthy. So wealthy that Donald Trump said, we're going to start a sovereign wealth fund, right? We're going to have so much money, we're going to have to put it in a savings account for the first time ever. Oh boy, just money coming out the wazoo. Well, it turns out, according to reports this week, Donald Trump has already spent $155 billion more than Biden had at this point in his presidency. Elon Musk readjusted his figures to say we're not going to be able to save $2 trillion. We might save $150 billion, which has already been offset by the fact that Trump increased spending by $155 billion. So we're still losing money. But according to the financial analysts at Goldman Sachs, the U.S. economy is about to lose a lot more money than that. In fact, we've already been losing money since Donald Trump came into office, they say, but it's about to get so much worse. Because foreign tourism into the United States is plummeting. It's plummeting so badly that these analysts at Goldman Sachs are now predicting that the U.S. economy is going to lose $90 billion this year alone because foreigners don't want to come over here anymore for vacation. And the reason, of course, is 100% because of Donald Trump. Most of these people, according to this analysis, don't want to come over here because they're worried about Donald Trump's, border crossing policies. Even for people legally here on travel visas, right? Like, we're coming for 2 weeks to go to Disney World. It's going to be so much fun. They're now not doing that because Trump may just send us right back. Or he may not let us out of customs at the airport. They may keep us there for days. They may put us in detention, which, for the record, has happened to tourists. Tourists from Europe this year, since Trump took office, trying to just come to the United States for leisure. Some of them have been detained for weeks. Now, those horror stories aren't necessarily told by the U.S. media, but you know where they are told? Literally everywhere else around the globe. So you may not see it when you turn on media here in the United States, but they do. And it scares the hell out of them. To the point where they are now canceling trips, flights from Canada to the United States in the last couple months have seen a 70% decline in bookings. 70% reduction in people flying from Canada to the United States. The trade war is turning people off as well. Some people just dislike Donald Trump and his policies so much, they're not worried about the immigration thing, but they say, screw this guy. I'm not going to go visit this country while this wannabe fascist tyrant is sitting in the White House. I'll put it off. Maybe we'll go to Vegas in 4 years when somebody else is in the White House. Maybe we'll finally make that trip to the top of the Empire State Building in 2029. But we're not going to do it now. That is what these people are saying. Hotels have already noticed, some hotel groups, the big groups that own most hotels, have reported a 25% drop in bookings from European travelers. $20 billion in retail spending from international visitors is now at risk. And overall $90 billion for the U.S. economy is projected to be lost. So what happens when the economy loses tens of billions of dollars in a short period of time? People lose their jobs. If hotels don't have as many people checking in, you don't need as many members of the bell staff. You don't need as many valets. You don't need as many cooks. You don't need as many maids. So people start getting laid off. And then those people that were working those jobs, especially if you're talking about an area like where I live in Florida, tourism is our number one industry. Las Vegas, I was just there a couple weeks ago. That city's dead. If you watch any, reels on Instagram or posts on TikTok of the people of Vegas, you will see it is way below where it usually is. That is crazy. But now it makes sense. So we're losing money. First you lose the money, then you lose the jobs, then the money that those people who lost their jobs would be spending in the local economy, that dries up, more layoffs, more such and such. That is how the cycle goes. And as always, it's important to remember that this is 100%.
Did you know that Canadians are one of our largest tourist groups in the United States? Particularly Florida. They had a special relationship. Travel and tourism is going to be so abrupted due to Trump's tariffs. Annually, Canadians contribute $6 to $9 billion every single year. Some posts that I've done, every single country is not coming to the United States, period. This is going to cost the United States trillions of dollars. Do you live in another country and you have canceled your trip? If you have, I do not blame you. People being detained, deported, all kinds of bad stuff. We got a guy in El Salvador that the court has told us to bring him back, and Trump refused it. This is going to be some very troubled times for the United States. And if you live in another country, especially Canada, have you canceled your plans? Are you selling your home in Florida? As you guys know, Florida is already having a tough time with natural disasters, insurance companies canceling them, very high property taxes, and their industry is huge on tourism, specifically Disney World and all those parks, the beaches. Drop your comments and follow for all things personal finance.